Good evening. You are watching World News, where we track the stories shaping global power, security, and diplomacy. Tonight, questions about truth, power, and nuclear brinkmanship dominate the international landscape. From conspiracy theories in the United States to rising tensions in the Middle East, where diplomacy, deterrence, and the threat of military escalation are colliding once again. We begin in the United States, where the shadow of a scandal that shook the global elite refuses to fade. Even years after his death, Jeffrey Epstein continues to fuel controversy and conspiracy theories. Newly released documents, viral online claims, and lingering questions about security lapses surrounding his death are once again drawing public attention. While official investigations concluded that Epstein died by suicide in prison, contradictions in records and unanswered questions are giving new life to speculation that the convicted sex offender with powerful connections may not be gone after all. Let's take a look at this report.
Jeffrey Epstein, alive? That's the question swirling across social media this week after a viral photo allegedly showing Epstein began circulating online. The man in the image sports dark sunglasses, a long beard, and grown-out hair, sparking speculation that the notorious convicted sex offender, who died in a federal jail in 2019, is somehow still alive. Users on Twitter, Reddit, and X are sharing the image widely. Some claim he's in Israel, others suggest he's hiding in witness protection. Comments range from disbelief to full-blown conspiracy theories, with one post claiming, "This is the full picture of Epstein, he's alive." The speculation comes as the Justice Department released the final tranche of Epstein-related documents, including emails, interviews, and records tied to Epstein and his inner circle. Conspiracy theorists are combing through the files, alleging everything from secretive criminal networks to ritualistic activity. But so far, none of these claims have been verified. Experts and fact-checkers are clear. This is not Jeffrey Epstein. Analysts suggest it could be a lookalike or even an AI-generated image. Some online sleuths have pointed out watermarks and artifacts in the photo indicating it was digitally created. Grok fact-checked the claim, noting the man's facial features and hairstyle don't match Epstein's known appearance before his death. Yet, despite expert analysis, the image continues to spread like wildfire, fueled by conspiracy threads, selective excerpts from the newly released DOJ files, and widespread fascination with Epstein's case. The bottom line? Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. This viral photo does not change that fact, but it does show how quickly misinformation can spread and how conspiracy theories can take on a life of their own in the digital age.
Iran says it is entering negotiations with the United States in Oman with what it calls open eyes, urging diplomacy based on mutual respect. The talks come amid growing military pressure. US President Donald Trump has ordered a naval buildup near Iran and has warned of possible military action even as China signals support for Tehran's diplomatic position. The outcome of these talks could shape regional stability in the coming months. The talks are ongoing in Oman. Here's the report.
The US and Iran just started nuclear talks in Oman. At the exact same time, China steps in and publicly declares support for Iran. So here's the question shaking global politics. If Iran is hit, would China hit back? Behind closed doors in Muscat, US and Iranian officials are talking nuclear limits, sanctions, and security. But thousands of miles away in Beijing, China sends a very clear signal. Iran's sovereignty is non-negotiable, and Washington is listening. During a high-level meeting with Iranian officials, China's foreign ministry openly criticized what it called unilateral bullying. That phrase is diplomatic code for US sanctions, military threats, and regime pressure. China says it supports Iran's legitimate rights, including peaceful nuclear development, and rejects threats or force as a solution. This wasn't random. The statement came just one day before US-Iran talks began in Oman. Iran's message? We won't negotiate under pressure. China's message? You're not alone. Iran's delegation, led by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, insists the talks stay focused on nuclear issues only. The U.S. wants more: missiles, regional influence, and militant groups. Meanwhile, Washington hasn't ruled out military action, and U.S. forces are quietly building up in the region. That's the tension. So, would China actually defend Iran if the U.S. strikes? Most analysts say no direct military response. China avoids wars far from home, but that doesn't mean it stays neutral. Just days ago, China, Russia, and Iran signed a new strategic agreement, not a military alliance, but a united front against sanctions, coercion, and Western dominance. That changes the equation. China probably won't attack the U.S. over Iran, but its support makes war riskier, diplomacy harder, and the stakes much higher. And as talks continue in Oman, one thing is clear: this isn't just a U.S.-Iran story anymore.
Now, a new report suggests Israel may be preparing for the possibility of direct confrontation with Iran. According to Israeli public broadcaster KAN News, security agencies believe Yemen's Houthi fighters could resume attacks on Israel and US ships if Washington launches strikes on Iran. That risk assessment is shaping Israeli military planning, with officials preparing for a potential retaliation scenario across multiple fronts. This report explains the situation.
Israel is gearing up for war, or at least preparing for the unthinkable. High-level Israeli military chiefs are reportedly reviewing strike plans against Iran, while the United States ramps up its largest Middle East military buildup in decades. According to Ynet, Air Force Commander Major General Tomer Bar and Head of Military Intelligence Major General Shlomi Binder convened a top-secret meeting to assess operational readiness for potential attacks on Iranian nuclear and missile sites. This comes amid an unprecedented U.S. deployment. Aircraft carriers, stealth fighters, drones, aerial refuelers, and advanced missile defenses are now positioned in the Gulf and Eastern Mediterranean. Analysts are calling it the largest non-wartime buildup in recent memory, a show of force and a warning to Tehran. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group has already arrived, with a second carrier reportedly on the way. Hundreds of aircraft are staged at bases in Jordan and Qatar, while THAAD and Patriot missile batteries protect U.S. forces and allies like Israel. Israel is on high alert. Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir has said a U.S. strike on Iran could happen in as little as 2 weeks to 2 months. Israeli forces are conserving munitions, preparing for retaliation from Iran or its allies, and keeping an eye on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Iran is showing no signs of backing down. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has warned of instant retaliation if the U.S. or Israel strikes. Satellite images show Iran rapidly repairing missile sites damaged during last year's Operation Rising Lion, while nuclear facilities are being slowly reconstructed. Inside Iran, ongoing protests and economic turmoil continue, but an external attack could rally the population around the regime, creating a volatile mix of internal unrest and external threats. With diplomatic talks in Oman ongoing, the situation remains tense. Israel is pushing for action. The U.S. is signaling both deterrence and readiness, and Iran is threatening a harsh response. The coming weeks could determine whether the region avoids war or descends into chaos. Middle East tensions are at a boiling point. Stay with us for the latest updates.
Now, satellite analysis suggests Iran has rapidly repaired several ballistic missile facilities damaged in the last year's strikes by Israel and United States. However, reconstruction at major nuclear facilities appears to be moving more slowly. The uneven pace of rebuilding may reflect Iran's military calculations, particularly as the United States increases its force presence in the region and considers further action. If conflict erupts, analysts believe Iran's ballistic missile arsenal would likely be its primary tool of retaliation. Here's more in this report.
New satellite images released by the New York Times reveal a startling development in the Middle East. Iran's ballistic missile sites, reportedly damaged during last year's 12-day war with Israel, have been rapidly repaired. High-resolution images from Planet Labs show that more than half of the targeted missile facilities are now rebuilt. Cleared debris, new structures, and resumed operations indicate that Iran wasted no time in restoring its missile capabilities, some work beginning within just months of the attacks. In stark contrast, Iran's nuclear facilities, like Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan, have seen slower, limited repairs, often just basic reconstruction. Analysts say this highlights Tehran's strategic prioritization of missiles over nuclear enrichment, focusing on immediate deterrence against Israel and U.S. forces. Ballistic missiles are Iran's primary tool for projecting power. Experts cited in the report note that intelligence assessments indicate the missile program has largely recovered since last June's conflict, restoring a key layer of Iran's military strength. The timing is critical. Indirect U.S.-Iran talks are ongoing in Oman, while President Trump has deployed a massive naval presence in the region. These rebuilt missile sites could shift the balance of power and complicate any negotiations, raising the stakes in an already tense region. Visible above-ground repairs tell only part of the story. Underground or hidden work remains difficult to verify, but the rapid reconstruction sends a clear message. Iran is determined to maintain a credible missile deterrent, ready for any threat. Meanwhile, Iranian state television dropped a striking new footage: underground missile cities packed with some of Iran's most powerful weapons. At the center of that message was one missile in particular, Khorramshahr-4, also known as Haybar. The Khorramshahr-4 is Iran's most advanced medium-range ballistic missile, developed by the country's Aerospace Industries Organization and operated by the IRGC Aerospace Force. First unveiled in May 2023, this missile represents the fourth generation of the Khorramshahr family, a program rooted in North Korean missile designs, but heavily upgraded by Iran. Let's break down why this missile matters. Khorramshahr-4 has a reported range of around 2,000 kilometers. That puts Israel, U.S. bases across the Gulf, and even parts of southeastern Europe within reach. But range is only part of the story. This missile can carry a massive payload, up to 1,800 kilograms, one of the heaviest warheads in Iran's arsenal. It can deliver a single high-impact warhead, cluster munitions, or potentially multiple warheads. With tensions rising and ballistic missiles back online, the coming months could determine whether the region avoids another confrontation or faces a new escalation.
Iran's nuclear program is back in sharp global focus after a senior Iranian cleric declared that uranium enrichment will continue despite international pressure. The statement comes at a sensitive moment as negotiations continue between Iran and the United States in Muscat, Oman. Iran's leadership continues to describe nuclear enrichment as a national right and a symbol of technological independence, rejecting calls to halt the program. This report has the details.
Amid nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran in Oman, Iran has delivered a blunt message from Tehran. Uranium enrichment will continue. Suspension is not happening. In a fiery Friday sermon on February 6th, senior Iranian cleric Ayatollah Ahmad Khatami rejected international calls to halt enrichment, calling them irrelevant. Speaking from Tehran's main prayer pulpit, Khatami made it clear that Iran's nuclear program is, in his words, non-negotiable. Khatami insisted Iran's pursuit of nuclear energy is peaceful, religiously grounded, and protected by Islamic principles that forbid nuclear weapons. He stressed that Iran is not afraid of U.S. pressure, sanctions, or threats, and will not abandon enrichment under any circumstances. The message wasn't just for Washington, it was for Iran's own people. The sermon came the same day indirect U.S.-Iran talks quietly began in Oman. While diplomats negotiate behind closed doors, Iran's clerical leadership chose to speak loudly and publicly. It was a reminder of who ultimately sets red lines in Tehran. The Oman talks are officially focused on Iran's nuclear program and sanctions relief, but the U.S. wants more: ballistic missiles and Iran's regional allies. Iran refuses. Tehran insists enrichment and sovereignty are not bargaining chips. That gap is the core problem. Last year, Israeli and U.S. strikes severely damaged Iran's nuclear facilities at Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan. Hundreds were killed, and key infrastructure was destroyed. But Iran says the program survived and is now being rebuilt deeper underground to withstand future attacks. The International Atomic Energy Agency has raised alarms, reporting large stockpiles of 60% enriched uranium, enough for multiple nuclear weapons if further refined. The U.S. has responded with military deployments and sharp warnings. Iran has raised alerts and closed airspace over key sites. Behind the scenes, Iran is divided. Some officials see enrichment as leverage for sanctions relief. Hardliners see it as a matter of national dignity and survival. Khatami's sermon made clear which side is speaking louder right now. So, as negotiations continue in Oman, Iran's position is firm. Enrichment continues. Suspension is off the table. Pressure will not work. Whether diplomacy can overcome those red lines, or whether this standoff escalates again, may define the future of the Middle East.
The coming weeks could prove critical. Diplomacy is underway, military forces are repositioning, and political rhetoric is hardening. Whether the region moves forward in negotiation or towards confrontation, it may depend on decisions being made right now in Washington, Oman, Tehran, and Jerusalem. That's all for this edition of World News. I am Pankaj Mishra. Thanks for watching.